An FBI chemist shook a poisoned capsule out onto glass and saw it, tiny flecks of green. Not cyanide. Algae killer, the stuff people drop into a home fish tank to keep the water clear. Those green specks sent Stella Nickell to prison for 90 years, and they came from her own aquarium. But the green dust isn't the strangest part of this case. It isn't even close. To hide the murder of her husband, Stella killed a second person she had never met. And the name that finally reached the FBI came from inside her own family. Auburn, Washington. June 1986. A small house off the highway, a fish tank humming in the corner. Bruce Nickell was 52, a heavy equipment operator for the state highway department. He'd been an alcoholic, and he'd quit the hard way, and stayed quit. People liked him. That afternoon he came home with a headache. Nothing dramatic, the kind you get from squinting all day. He opened a bottle of Extra-Strength Excedrin, shook out 4 capsules, and washed them down. Within minutes, he told his wife he felt like he was about to pass out. He walked out to the back porch and collapsed there. He never really came back. He died at Harborview Medical Center in Seattle the same day, with his wife at the hospital. Doctors called it emphysema. Bad lungs, a lifetime of smoking, a heart that quit. Sad and ordinary. Nobody suspected anything. A 52-year-old smoker dies, and the paperwork more or less writes itself. But here's the small thing that saved this case, years before anyone knew there was a case. Bruce was an organ donor, so the hospital drew a sample of his blood and kept it. That vial went into a freezer and sat there, meaning nothing to anyone. Remember it. 6 days later, about 10 miles away, a woman named Sue Snow got up for work. 40 years old, a bank manager, the kind who's at her desk before the lights warm up. She had a headache too. She took 2 Excedrin capsules in her bathroom before 6 in the morning. Her 15-year-old daughter found her on the bathroom floor a few minutes later. Sue Snow died that morning, and there was no medical reason on earth for it. Healthy 40-year-olds don't collapse without warning. That's the kind of death that makes people look closer. At the medical examiner's office, an assistant leaned over the body and caught a faint smell. Bitter almonds. Not everyone can smell it, the ability is genetic, and she happened to have it. That smell is cyanide. One person's nose is the only reason anybody thought to test for it. The results came back fast. Sue Snow had swallowed a lethal dose of potassium cyanide. Detectives went to her bathroom, took the Excedrin bottle off the shelf, and opened the capsules. 3 of them were packed with cyanide instead of painkiller. The rest were perfectly normal. Sit with that for a second, thinking about the bottle in your own bathroom cabinet. Someone had opened a sealed package on a store shelf, loaded it, and put it back. 4 years earlier, 7 people in Chicago died from cyanide and Tylenol. That case was never solved. So in 1986, nobody needed convincing this was possible. The country went straight to panic. Bristol. Myers pulled Excedrin capsules nationwide. Stores swept entire shelves of painkillers into garbage bins. People threw out medicine they'd had for years, because nobody trusts a bottle that's already been opened. Police hunted for more tainted bottles, and found them, 5 in total, scattered around Auburn and Kent. Then the widow called. Stella Nickell said her husband had died the same way, 6 days before Sue Snow. Same brand, same headache, same sudden collapse. She wanted Bruce's death looked at again. It sounded like grief, and like a terrible coincidence. It turned out to be neither. They pulled that frozen vial of donor blood, the one nobody meant to save for this. Bruce Nickell had cyanide in his system. His death certificate was rewritten, not emphysema. Poison. 2 victims now, 2 towns, 1 product, and a stranger out there poisoning people for no reason. That's exactly what it was built to look like. And here's where the illusion starts cracking. Of every poison bottle recovered in the entire country, 2 came out of 1 house. Stella's house. 1 in her kitchen, 1 in her purse. Sit with those odds for a moment. Lightning doesn't hit the same mailbox twice in a week. Randomness doesn't have a favorite address. So investigators did the unglamorous thing and started reading paperwork, which is where careful murders usually die. Bruce had a life insurance policy through his state job. Modest, completely expected. But Stella had quietly taken out extra policies on him, and those policies had a clause. If he died of natural causes, she'd collect 1 amount. If he died by accident, several times that. Emphysema was worth a fraction of what a random poisoning at the hands of a stranger was worth. She didn't just need Bruce dead. She needed him dead in a specific, profitable way. That's why she called the police herself. She wasn't reporting a crime, she was correcting an invoice. If that just reframed the whole case for you, that's exactly what this channel does. Stick around. Motive still isn't proof. Plenty of people profit from a death and never lay a finger on anyone. What actually convicted Stella Nickell was smaller than a grain of salt, and she never saw it. At the FBI laboratory, a chemist named Roger Martz worked through the recovered capsules 1 at a time. He wasn't hunting for a signature. He was doing the boring part, logging exactly what was inside. And capsule after capsule, mixed into the white cyanide powder, sat tiny specks of green crystal. Green isn't something cyanide does. Green was an ingredient that had no business being there. So the lab set out to identify it, testing those flecks against ordinary consumer products. Cleaners, fertilizers, pesticides, hundreds of unremarkable things people keep in a garage or under a sink. The match was a product called Algae Destroyer, a tablet you drop into a home fish tank. It has nothing to do with headaches, or cyanide, or murder. It's a pet store item for hobbyists. So why was it in the poison? Not as an ingredient, as a leftover. Think of whisking pancake batter in the bowl that held chopped garlic the night before. You rinsed it. You looked at it. You called it clean. Everybody does that. Stella kept tropical fish, and she crushed algae tablets into powder to treat the tank. Then she used the same container to grind cyanide, fine enough to pour into capsules. The bowl remembered. Every capsule she filled carried a few grains of her hobby. And that's what the green dust proves, not that she was cruel, but where the poison was made. The poison in a stranger's bathroom in Auburn came out of a kitchen on Stella's own street. 4 of the 5 recovered bottles carried the same green contamination. One hand had filled all of them. A wave of random tampering by a random stranger shouldn't trace back to a single fish tank. Investigators started working pet stores around Auburn, because Algae Destroyer wasn't stocked in every shop. The map of who could buy it kept shrinking, and it kept pointing at the same house. Meanwhile, the FBI asked a duller question. Where does an ordinary person learn that cyanide works? It's 1986. There's no internet. You go to a library, and libraries keep records. Stella had checked out books about poisons from the public library in Auburn. Books on poisonous plants and human poisoning, not the kind of thing you borrow by accident. The lab didn't just note the checkout record. They pulled the books and dusted the pages. 84 of Stella Nickell's fingerprints came up across the pages of those library books. And they weren't spread evenly. They clustered on the pages that dealt with cyanide. A casual reader leaves prints on the cover and a corner. She'd gone back to one chapter, repeatedly. Her own hands had marked the exact pages she studied, and left them sitting in a public building. There's one more piece, and it's the part that stays with people the longest. The manufacturers had posted a large reward for information. Life-changing money for the right phone call. The call that put Stella at the center of everything came from her own daughter, Cindy. Cindy told the FBI. Her mother had talked about killing Bruce for years, openly, almost casually. Hit men. Poisonous plants. Ways to make a death look like nothing had happened at all. Then Cindy sat in a federal courtroom in Tacoma and said all of it with her mother watching. In 1988, Stella Nickell became the first person convicted under the federal product tampering law. 5 counts. 90 years. She has denied it ever since and insists her daughter lied for the money. 2 people died so that one death would look accidental, and the second death is what exposed her. Sue Snow was killed to sell a story, and Sue Snow's autopsy is what tore that story apart. Here's the line worth keeping: a faked pattern always has a center, and the center is a person. Cases like this deserve to be remembered. Subscribe, and next we'll cover the 1982 Chicago Tylenol murders, still unsolved. Bruce Nickell. Sue Snow. 2 names worth remembering a lot longer than hers. Thanks for watching.